Three friends boarded Disney's Galactic Starcruiser to seek their destiny and emerged as heroes of the Halcyon. Hello and welcome to Heroes of the Halcyon, the best, and to the best of our knowledge, only Galactic Starcruiser Superfan podcast on the web. I am Starcruiser Superfan Drew, and with me are...
Superfan Christine.
And Superfan Martin.
Martin, what are we talking about tonight?
Really, we're just going to have a friendly grab bag of topics of things that we all want to discuss. Some about the second voyage that we have upcoming. Some of them just in Starcruiser itself. But it's fun to just shoot the poodoo with our Starcruiser friends, and let's get to it.
So for my topic tonight, I want to talk about my second character. When we went on our first voyage, I was Zoran Vox. Zoran Vox, in the mythology that we kind of constructed for the four of us on our first voyage, was the security personnel that was there to accompany Halcyon Vorman, who is my son's character. Halcyon was a frequent star in Jorg Sakul's action holovids, and he needed security personnel to accompany him on his various voyages. So when I went, I was pretty much just a generic Star Wars. I'm air quoting. Again, podcasting is not a visual media, but just imagine a balding man in his 50s, just air quoting, and that's what I'm doing right now. So I was very generic. I had the vest that you can buy at Amazon. I had some great pins that you guys provided to me. I had really cool shades that I'm going to have to figure out how to put into my second character because those shades were so cool. And they have reading lenses on the bottom, so it makes it easier for me to see my phone. Oh man, kids, don't grow up to be 50. The alternative is worse, but 50's not so great. In any case, when we go back, I want to change my character. It's not that I don't want to be generic, but I don't want to be generic. I don't want to be just a guy who could be starring on, what are some of those Canadian shows that were on Sci-Fi back,
World Beyond.
World Beyond. What was the one with the Hercules actor?
Oh, geez.
Andromeda? Yeah, and then there was the Lex was another generic. But you guys aren't here for generic Canadian science fiction shows. My apologies. I don't want my character to look like one of those generic people. So we've been talking about some options. And I think our listeners probably are interested kind of in what do they need to do for constructing characters. So I thought one thing that would be interesting is kind of talking about the workshop process with your friends. And I happen to have, two friends here. So what do you think some things are that I need to think about when I create my character? Martin.
Well, I do think that it's smart because I think if you had just gone by yourself and with Zach's character, Halcyon, it would have really stood out. But the fact that, you and I and Zach had to kind of, I don't want to say the word compete with Christine's character, did make it kind of hard because she was so visually distinctive. I mean, she actually looked like something that could be a cast member, an actual legit Disney, cast member. And I think a lot of people on the ship probably thought that she was, at least initially.
Well, they especially thought she was when during the muster, this isn't a spoiler for folks who haven't heard, but during the muster, they actually have Saja who are responsible for the sections of the ship, and they make you kind of compete with, we're Section A, we're Section B, we were Section D, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Correct.
And our Saja was nowhere to be found. So Christine just picked up the sign and went D or whatever they called for us. And so I'm sure that some of the people in sections A, B, C, and D thought, oh, she's with the cast. So that was pretty cool.
Well, I have to say that was really a fun moment because, again, Christine had never cosplayed in her entire life. And she just grabbed that sign and took charge of the entire group and by the atrium shouting that out. I thought that was really fun to see.
Well, I don't want to lose tangent on our actual topic, but what was that like when we were coming around? Because are you the kind of person who does kind of jump in there, or was that a moment where you said, I'm not Christine anymore, I'm Maleficent, what was that like?
I think it was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it was partially the costume and the character allows you to step outside of yourself and be like, well, this may not be something that I would normally do, but I'm going to do it. I think it's more the confidence in, it's almost like whenever we go to Comic-Con or any other convention of that sort, that you just kind of let yourself go to be you, where you're not constrained by, oh, if I do this, I might look dumb, or somebody might think, who the hell are you doing this? That kind of thing. And I was just like, well, I I can yell out D.
Yep, that was awesome.
So I'll muster these people.
Yeah, that was very cool.
I do think that's actually relevant to the topic, though, because again, like Drew, I think that you kind of increasing the visual distinction of your character will give you some of that extra oomph to jump into those things, because that was just amazing to see, and I want some of that sweet juice.
And Martin, you know I'm all about the oomph. so that's important. But so when and for folks who are thinking about their character just like I am, one of the things in the back of my head is something we've talked about regularly on the show. You don't have to dress in a character costume. You don't have to be the person who looks the most like the third sister or whatever from those shows. You don't have to be the one who's most visually distinct. But if you come in at least some sort of costume, instead of just the t-shirt that says, "My other house is on Hoth," you look like somebody that the cast members are going to go, okay, this person's here to play. This person, they're ready to take some of my energy and give me back and blah, 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 blah. So I definitely want that. But what are the other things that I might want to think about, Christine, when I'm making my character?
Especially going on a second voyage, you probably want to think about what path do you want to take.
Sure.
You know, we all, I think at least had a general idea of what path we were probably going to take on the first voyage. And now that you've got a little taste of what each one of them is like, I think once you put your character in that path, they kind of work together. So if you know your path, you know your character. If you know your character, you know your path. You know, if you're going to, come in all, dressed in, black and red and, decide you're going to be a Jedi. Well, that doesn't really go together. That sounds really more first order.
Sure.
So in that sense, I think if you determine what path you want to take, it may help, what's the word I'm looking for? Formulate your character.
Okay. Martin?
Yeah, I'll say that something I learned really, really just by looking at other people, not just Christine, but a lot of other people that did kind of come in character, is it's more important to be visually distinctive than have a tremendously detailed backstory. Backstories are great, but backstories kind of live in our head. They don't really go beyond that. Whereas to be visually distinctive really is important in my mind for this. If standing out is your goal. And again, with my character, I never want to, take the focus away from other people, and I don't want to inject myself into, every event. But I do want to be memorable. I do want to be something that's, my character is fun for other people, and I that's kind of where I want to keep the focus. But let's kind of think about what are some very Star Wars visually distinctive elements that you could put on a character that we don't see all the time.
So I know I don't want to do a lot of makeup. And I don't want to do a lot of makeup just because, for a variety of reasons. One, there are already two people doing a lot of makeup in our room. There won't be a lot of place to put that makeup on. Two, I'm not very good at makeup. I did quite a bit of it in high school and college, in theater. And I don't want to do that again. So I don't want makeup for visually distinctiveness. I want something as far as a costume that's kind of unique. I don't want to spend a huge amount of money, and so I'm not going to get an elaborate Leiku set, for example. So I'm not going to do a Twi'lek or something that requires extra stuff, unless it's easy to apply or easy to put on. And then as far as some things that I do want, we've all chatted a little bit back, and I appreciate you guys, by the way, letting me workshop some of this, so this is good. I do like the idea of Lobot from Empire. I think that I didn't see anybody doing a good Lobot. I didn't see anybody doing a bad Lobot either.
Right.
And I think part of the reason is probably because it's awfully difficult to get things to stick on over your ears, so that might be part of the challenge. But so something like that, a headdress, I don't know, something that I put on my head that would be unique, besides just a hat, that would be cool.
I really think the Lobot-esque idea, again, not Lobot specifically,
the character, right?
But a Lobot-like character that's got, the head, augmentation, I'm not even sure what the actual name is. I'm a shameful Star Wars nerd at the moment, but I think that's super distinctive. That's super Star Wars. I don't think it would be, you always want to make sure that any costume you have doesn't interfere with you walking around and interacting with anything. And boy, I got to tell you, I have never seen a Lobot on any Starcruiser video. I've never seen one gosh, I can't even think of a Lobot walking around at a convention.
Yeah, so, and again, it may be because that the ear things are hard to make look right. So maybe we'll explore this. But going back to what you said, Christine, I don't think it's spoilery to say the 4 paths that we know of, because I think most people have talked about the paths. So for those of you who don't want to hear about the paths, just, either turn off the podcast or fast forward about 10 seconds. But it's pretty clear that the Resistance is one of those paths, right? I mean, that makes sense when you're going on a Star Wars journey that takes place between Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. I should say The Last Jedi so that people don't get confused. It's pretty clear that the Resistance is going to be one of those paths, right?
Right.
It's funny. It's one that none of us really saw very much of.
Right.
But yeah, we do know that is a path.
Well, we know because we went, but I guess just for the people out there who don't know. But in any case, I think I really want to go Resistance heavy. Okay. So to your point, Christine, something that maybe clearly identifies me as a member of the Resistance, so that when someone looks at me and says in their head, and by somebody I mean a cast member, they look over at the handsome form that I present and they say, you know what, that guy, he's a Resistance member. That's kind of what I want them to think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play devil's advocate just for a moment, just for purely entertainment value here between us. Is it smart to be so distinctive to one path? Because because I kind of like the idea of being flexible with your design, because if something happens, you do want to kind of steer a different way. Sure.
I would, Martin, for a person who hasn't gone on the trip, 100%. 100%.
For a second voyage, you know what you're looking for.
So for those of you listening, there's got to be at least 5 of you. But for those of you listening who have never gone on a voyage, Martin, you're 100% right. Because if you pigeonhole yourself, then you might be inadvertently blocking some things. Like if you're dressed as a Jedi in very clearly Jedi robes, and the First Order guy looks at you, maybe Croy's going to go, I don't think that guy's really going to be, or he's going to be maybe adversarial towards you.
Right.
So yes, I would say for people who haven't gone, a more not generic but more flexible appearance would be good. For me though, for voyage number 2, I want to have something that identifies me.
I would actually say there's an extra benefit then, because one of the struggles that I'm really having as we start seeing our second voyage date kind of coming up is I loved the path I took so much the first voyage that there's going to be that moment that you start getting missions and you have to quote unquote ignore or betray paths to go in whatever direction you choose. And there's going to be that moment that I just know that this is kind of the point of no return, that if I do this or don't do this, I'm off that path that I loved so much. And I don't want to say terrified. That's not the right word, but I'm really scared that I'm going to just fold in that moment and just go back to that one storyline, the smuggler storyline that I loved so dearly. But at the same time, I really do want to go a different path. So anything you can do to kind of pre-program a different path for a second voyage, I think actually would probably make that choice easier for you.
Does he wake up in the middle of the night, Christine, and say, I'm sorry, Wraith?
Christine,
that's me.
That's you, yeah.
Nice. Christine is going to have the same exact...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What is it? A crisis of conscience?
Yeah.
Well, it's not like you're going to walk up to Wraith and like punch him in the face, right?
No, it's going to be the opposite.
Oh, you're going to want to give him a big hug.
Yes.
And, yeah, sure. I understand.
And Gaia and like sisters, Twi'leks.
Sure. That's a good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Well, good point, Martin. Steering myself by appearance and saying, okay, this guy's, in my case, I want to choose to be Resistance. So then what are some things that I could do as a Resistance member with or without Lobot ears? Because I don't want to commit to that because I might not be able to make it look right. But what are some other things that I might want to think about?
Well, I would go back to actually the films and think who are
nice.
When you think Resistance, what characters do you think of?
Okay. The first one that popped in my head was Rose. Finn pops in my head.
Okay.
Lieutenant Connix is there, yeah.
Sure. All the folks there on the planet, on the base, I should say.
Boy, that's kind of interesting because, you could actually... Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Martin.
You could even have just, really, the trick with backstories that you share with people is to keep them very, very short. And you could just say, I was on a base with Rose, with Lieutenant Connix, whoever. and that's just gives them an instant. Okay, here's where this character has been aligned up to this point. Can I trust them or not?
So in my head, I'm seeing everybody looking like Finn. Was that brown coat kind of a resistance uniform? Am I remembering that wrong?
He got the brown coat from Poe.
From Poe, but then in the other movies, like Rose was wearing, and then I don't remember which one Lieutenant Connix is. Sorry, I don't have that. But who's Dominic Monaghan's the guy that was also in Lord of the Rings and Lost?
He was in The Rise of Skywalker for all of 10,
Wasn't
10
he
minutes.
wearing a brown coat too?
Okay,
So where I'm going with this is that generic brown coat look is one of the things that maybe I want to look into.
Right.
But
So now you're looking at a simple shirt, a almost army type jacket,
with
patches on them.
Yes,
I'm picturing that.
Yep.
Very casual kind of cargo pants,
Right.
Because of course, why wouldn't you need all those pockets?
You gotta
have all those pockets.
They're very important.
Yeah, and then boots. I mean, to me, that's a very simple look.
Okay.
But I would think anybody that would look at that would be like, oh, okay, I think I know what direction he's going in.
Okay.
You can also have rank insignias that kind of instantly tells people, ooh, this person's been around the galaxy.
Did they have those for the Resistance in Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker?
I'm trying to think specifically of Force Awakens when you really get a good look at the people in the base, because that takes place hours before Last Jedi, and I believe they did. Let's pull up Disney Plus and check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to pull that up myself.
Either that or a DKE book, or not a DKE.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
a DK book that has all of the characters listed in it. That would probably be a good source material too.
I can also look in the DKNY book, and then I could find out what the springwear is for the Resistance.
Perfect.
Then I'd be in good shape. All right, so we've got generic things, and this is good. But what are some other things that might now let's take it up another level. If I wanted to, we know the story, and again, no spoilers, folks. Don't worry, we're not going to be giving anybody spoilers, but we know a little bit about the story. So, as an example, I would refer listeners to an earlier episode that we did with Mike Celestino from laughingplace.com. He had the character Lodico, and Lodico had a role that the cast members were able to almost seamlessly fold into one of the stories. And it was completely inadvertent because Mike Celestino had no idea what was coming. So he didn't do this as a plot. I'm going to make myself a member.
It wasn't a gimmick.
Yeah, it wasn't a gimmick. And they were able to intersect it. So maybe there's something I could do that kind of, I don't want to intersect with the story. I don't want to, totally cheat like that. But there maybe one of the things that I might consider is doing something that steers a little bit toward what we know is part of the story or the plots, and maybe steer my character in that direction. How bad would that be?
That actually is kind of useful, and I'm kind of thinking, using the character of Lodico that Mike came up with for his Antiquities series. I'm just going to kind of go back to it. He had those really distinctive goggles.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was something visual about him, right?
But he also had the kind of coat that you're talking about, and
it was a brown coat. I know that for sure.
Really, the outfit is exactly what you were describing a couple minutes ago.
It was a brown coat, wasn't it? A black spire coat. Am I remembering that too? That he
I believe so.
That he might. Yeah.
That's actually something I'm trying to think right now is how could you make something kind of inclusive of Batuu and Black Spire Outpost, just to kind of give it some quote unquote local flair,
right?
That you could get. That's kind of an interesting.
Well, at one point too, you had talked about possibly having the character be a mechanic of sorts.
Sure.
So if that mechanic worked on Batuu, well, it would just make sense that there's an opportunity there for interaction with the Resistance that's on Batuu.
Sure. That makes perfect sense.
There are ships on Batuu.
Yeah.
They've got, that whole little shipyard area.
Right.
In Batuu. Well, maybe that's where you work.
That works, yep. And then, so what else so the other things right now, we're recording this at the end of July, and what's the new Magic Band Plus experience, Martin, that's opening on Batuu?
Batuu Bounty Hunters is open now.
So, well, the person we're going with, the fifth member of our new voyage, Patty, is going to be dressing as a bounty hunter. Go, Patty. We're super excited to see your stuff. But so I was just thinking that going something bounty hunter, but I don't want to steal her shtick because she's got a really cool character already.
Yeah.
So what else is there on Batu besides the mechanic? There's retailers and shop owners.
Do you work at Oga's? It's kind of funny. I mean,
you said, do you work at Oga's? One of the things, by the way, I know I love that hat. Remember the hat that the guy outside Oga's had?
Oh my gosh, that was awesome.
But it's kind of like one of those newsboy caps, but it's a little different and little, so those caps are cool. I wonder if I could get one of those somewhere.
Space Newsy,
starring Drew Gergich. Yeah, that's good. I love it. Well, so there's shopkeepers there. Have you guys read, I'm looking at the Black Spire book as I talk to the lefty camera on the mic with Vi. What's Vi's last name, character?
Moradi.
Yeah, so is there anything in the book that...
Well, I'm trying to think here, specific going mechanic. I mean, one of the 2 attractions in Galaxy's Edge, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run.
You're talking about the Blue Milk booth, really?
Well, no, I'm talking...
that's not the attraction.
I'm talking about, a mechanic character would fold right into... you could say that you're working with, Onaka Transport Solutions very elegantly.
Oh, that's nice. Is there a mechanic already on Rebels or Clone Wars?
Not a specific. I mean, there are mechanics.
Not a named.
Okay.
Not a named mechanic.
Okay. Well, what's the character on Mandalorian? Isn't she a ship person who does?
Amy Sedaris' character. Oh, we absolutely adore her.
Yeah. So you guys have seen. I've just, again, I hate to show my Star Wars lack of credentials to a degree, but I haven't watched all of Mandalorian's second season or whatever else has shown up. But is she on any more than those couple episodes in the first season?
No, she's been a recurring character, and then she actually showed up, in Book of Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Pelimato is her name, and she is absolutely sensational. Like,
what does she have on her head?
Nothing. She's really
Big
got
hair.
She's got hair.
Big hair.
Big hair.
Big hair.
I do not have big hair. And a jumpsuit. So there we go. So jumpsuit.
I got to tell you that, do it again. It's a very distinct. She looks Star Wars. She looks legit Star Wars.
Okay, so that is something. So folks listening out there, and again, I promise none of this is prescriptive. We're just kind of shooting the poodoo and making this up as we go. But this is the process that very similar to what we went through when we first went, especially for me, because you guys had fully, I think your characters dropped out of the sky and may have resulted in that bump on your head, Martin. But for me, we had to fight tooth and nail kind of to come up with the generic character of Zoran Vox. But this is the process to go through, is to workshop it and talk it out and try to figure some things out, And
again, I think Zoran Vox is a better character than you give it credit for. I think that just a little bit more distinctiveness will just play. Now, the question, I really think that you should put a little thought into, are you going to be doing a different character or a different evolution of Zoran?
No, it's not Zoran Vox. It has nothing to do. Has nothing to do with Zoran Vox.
Gotcha.
So listeners, later on in the episode, we're going to be talking about our website, which I'm very excited for everyone to see. So tune into the end or go to heroesofthehalcyon.com. But that's Zoran Vox from the first voyage. When we do, as we get closer to the second voyage and I actually crystallize, see, I'm using science terms, that character, I want to put that on the website. It will not be named Zoran Vox. It'll have a new character bio. Won't be a relative of Zoran Vox. There I'm air quoting again on this visual.
Can I kill the character of Zoran Vox in my backstory?
You can, actually, yes. That'd be great. So it'll be brand spanking new. It won't even be something like Voran Zox. It'll be completely new.
Interesting. Okay, that's... I'm really excited because I think that I really do think that the Lobot thing is doable.
Oh, we'll have to check on Etsy.
I'm dying. Well, I don't even know if we're gonna have to go the Etsy route. I actually think that this is within our skill set to pull off.
Gotcha. Well, we'll figure it out. Again, for listeners who the benefit here is, I'm having fun, and there's nothing wrong with being generic sci-fi guy. Please don't. I would never judge you. I might judge you if you're wearing the My Other House is on Hoth's t-shirt, but I won't even judge you if you're wearing the just street clothes. I mean, it's not a big deal. But I personally want something a little distinctive. So this is the process you kind of have to go through to figure out what you want to do. So I think this has been a good modeling session. So just to recap, Resistance. I love the mechanic idea. I love looking at Mandalorian to get inspiration for his costume from the look of, what's that character's name?
Pelimato.
That would be cool. I am also 100% with you, Martin, where you said something visually distinctive on my head, other than my bald head, to make people look at me and go, oh, it's like when people looked at Lodico, they probably went, oh, it's the goggle guy, So
Right.
it makes it real easy to just go back to that person and get it set. So this is good stuff.
Well, I think that's great. And Christine, I mean, what's the kind of topic that you've got mulling around for Starcruiser this week?
Well, as we're getting closer to going on our second voyage, one of the challenges that I have is that they have changed since we went in March, their policy on makeup. So when we went in March, I went in full face makeup, wore it down to Batu, no questions asked, no concerns. Well, now they've got it to where you have the ability on the ship that they'll actually do makeup for you, or
At a cost.
At a cost, of course. Or you can do partial face makeup. Well, partial doesn't really work for Captain Maleficent. So I've gone back a little bit and tried to figure out how can I keep the character of Captain Maleficent, but do it differently. And so we are evolving, at least at this point, that's the direction I'm going in.
Sure.
We are evolving from Disney's Maleficent animated to Angelina Jolie's Maleficent live action, with the idea that in lieu of doing green, I will be going very, very pale.
Pale green or pale, like more white? Like
closer to white.
Like the Angelina Jolie, like just really pale skin.
Right.
So how pale can you make skin before they count it as
makeup? Full makeup.
Well, is it? I mean, still pale. Like if I looked at you from across the room, would I know you were wearing makeup? Or is the goal to be
likely?
Okay, so I'd still look across the room and go, oh, Christine's got some
She's
makeup.
Probably not that pale.
Okay.
Probably not that pale.
Okay.
So I need to work on it. I've bought additional, makeups so that I can play with it. But that's the idea, so that way I can keep the Maleficent mashup with Star Wars, but still abide by, the rules on Batu.
Because on the ship, anything goes.
Right.
Except you can't wear a full face helmet except for, quickly for photos, and you got to take it off. But
no blasters.
you can have full face paint on the Halcyon Starcruiser.
Yeah.
It's just when you go down to Batu that these other rules kind of come into place. But so the question I would ask is, are you still going to have the core, animated, inspired Maleficent that you had initially? And is it just going to be a different version on Excursion Day, or are you going to have a different character? Are you going to go the live action Maleficent inspired, look the entire voyage?
Yeah, and we had talked about having the quote unquote excursion version.
I love it. That's awesome.
Pretty sure that's a Martinism. Where it was just, the different makeup for the day that we went down on Batu. But I think it'll be a little confusing, especially if we do any kind of photos or anything like that.
Oh, sure.
That, sometimes I'm green and sometimes I'm not.
Right. Good point.
To do it, I would do it for the entire time, is go with the live action Maleficent.
Well, and that goes back to kind of what you were talking about in the earlier conversation, Martin, is if you're the same throughout the whole voyage, then there'll never be any confusion when people look at you and go, oh, it's
Exactly.
Captain Maleficent. But if you dress green one day, they'll be like, oh, Maleficent is green. I think the cast members will get over it pretty quick. That won't be a big thing for them. But for, general, it's good to have a consistent look the whole way through.
Yes.
To just, yeah.
Well, even so much, I'll be able to utilize most of the wardrobe too, with a little bit of tweak to it. But that's the one thing that I do like about the Captain Maleficent character is we've talked in the past about, bringing different costumes and, here's your outfit for dinner and here's your outfit for excursion day. And to me, it's just so simple to be like, this is me all the time.
Right.
So there'll be no, quick change wardrobe or anything like that. It'll just be the same character every day.
So as far as how pale can you go, the tricky part here is green is completely not a human shade.
Right.
There's no question. Listeners, I'm looking at the wall and I can see the picture of Christine as Maleficent in our original Voyage. Green with the purple eyeshadow, the bright red lips. The lips are not, I would say, out of bounds. Would you go with kind of the purple, what's more animation style for the eyeshadow? Or would you, so you wouldn't do that?
No, it would likely be, again, closer to the live action.
Right.
It would be more of a, what do they call that whenever they do the makeup? All I can think of is black eyes, and that's not what it's going to be.
Right.
Kind of airbrushed cheekbones and...
Yeah, whatever I can do to get as close to mimicking how she looked in the film.
Have you looked at? I mean, I hear there's makeup videos on YouTube.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Yes, there is.
Did you look at those for your first voyage when you were on green?
Yeah.
So are there any that talk about this look? And maybe you've already seen these, and I'm bringing up something obvious, but
yeah. I mean, the good news is that the application of the makeup itself should be the same as it was on the first voyage, just different colors. And I did combine 2 different colors to get that color for Maleficent the first time.
Was it perhaps blue and yellow, which make green?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was a blue and a green to make a blue-green.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so I'll be doing the same thing. I'll be taking what's more of a natural skin color and combining a little bit of white with it to see, again, how light can I get it without it being like, sorry.
To be fair, I mean, the first time we went, we actually did ask Disney point blank, is this approved for excursion day tomorrow? Because we were not going to have...
They let everybody go. I mean, it's good that we did because we were on an early voyage, yes, for sure. But until they made that new change in the website and announced the makeup service, which I'd love to talk about for a little bit when we're done specifically talking about yours, Christine. But before they made that change, everybody could go. I mean, the other Twi'lek that we saw who had the amazing, I don't remember their site, I'd love to give them a call out. The woman who was the pink Twi'lek, who went with her husband with all now his tattooing was obviously less than the 50% they're calling out, but she was all pink.
Yep.
Just like, and they're
awesome.
I mean, the person, I said the third sister because you guys know that the character is better. Remember, what was that character that we saw? The woman who was all white with a black paint.
Massage Ventress.
Okay, so she went down to the planet. She went down to Batu looking that as well.
Right.
Part of me thinks she's the one who they said, okay, this is too far. We can't let people do this anymore. But I guess where I'm going with this is it's not where I was going, but I'll go somewhere else. What I was going to say is if you just go with pale Christine, and even if you look like Angelina Jolie in the 2 movies, I'm playing her back in my head. I wouldn't have, if she was across the room, first of all, I'd say, hey, that's Angelina Jolie across the room. And why is she in my living room? But the other thing I'd say is she didn't look unnatural to me. She didn't look, maybe I'm thinking of her wrong?
The cheekbones are radically enhanced.
Sure.
Beyond what we'll do, of course.
You can't do that, right.
But I think that this has got to be simple. Now, to be fair, Christine, you did get a custom new pair of Leku, the head tails from your contact in Peru.
Yes.
It's always good to have one of those.
Hey, I got to tell you, quick, give that guy a shout out because he did such an amazing job, and he's going to do a rush job on this new pair, so it's done in time for who is this guy?
We don't know who he is, but on the website, Martin, we can go ahead and give a contact on the website. We can put a link to this.
Yeah, I would love to do that because the first piece that I got was absolutely beautiful.
Oh, and just the ideas he had for the second pair. Once you described what you were after, he came up with some really good ideas that you and I would never have come up with.
Right.
So,
Cool. Did you guys find him on Etsy?
Yes.
Oh, that's so good.
Yes.
Etsy, by the way, for those of you who are listening again, Etsy for everything related to Starcruiser.
Yes.
So when what's the custom, if you don't mind sharing? What's the new? You went with purple and black before.
Right. So this time it's going to be black and gray.
Black and gray. Okay.
Yes.
So where's the gray? I don't remember that. And is that referring to something in the movies?
Well, I would love to have gone black and black.
Okay.
But this is outside of his normal realm of of what he normally creates. I would love to have gone with like a flat black with like a shiny black as the tattoo piece of it. But we're going to go with the dark gray, which I think is going to look amazing.
The black and black would look more Angelina Jolie, but I don't think it would look Twi'lek enough.
Right.
Is really what his point was, and I think I agree with what he, trust a professional when it comes to that stuff. And,
so you got black and gray. Are you changing the costume? I mean, I'm looking again. You've got the purple sleeves and the purple belt. Are you? I mean, that's changed as well.
Yep.
I gotcha. But it'll still be a Twi'lek, and it'll still be
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of curious because you could easily put it in your own fiction that Maleficent is in disguise going to Batu if you looked different. But are you going to try in any way, shape, or form to kind of reconcile why she looks different this time than last time, or just kind of this is different, this is new?
Yeah, I'm not really sure because along with doing this and along with the website, again, quick plug for the end, I'm starting to go through and kind of write notes, be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Dig a little bit deeper into Maleficent.
Okay.
So get more of a backstory going.
Gotcha.
Just again, in my head, it's not like I'm going to
right.
show up on deck and be like, hey, you want to hear my backstory?
Right, sure.
But just to have it in my head. And so I may be able to do something there as far as why, like maybe it's part of the evolution of the character, part of the evolution of the species that she's mixed with. Sure. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far yet.
Well, it's not like they ever stopped on Star Trek and said, why do these Klingons have bumpy heads when the old ones didn't have that? So
yeah.
Well, Christine is looking at a very, very interesting angle that definitely ties into the Maleficent angle. I mean, we know that it's a Maleficent Star Wars mashup, but there's things that are very distinct to the, animated and live action Disney Maleficent, and how does she bring those elements into her character and yet still be in the confines of the Star Wars universe. And she's thought of some very, very clever things to kind of merge those two that stay within Star Wars the universe.
I've got it. You just need to walk around carrying a pair of black wings, and then you're being perfect. Everything works out.
Perfect. Yes, because there's tons of wings in Star Wars.
Oh, wait. Sorry, that won't work.
X-wing, a Y-wing,
yes.
and Maleficent wing.
Maleficent wings.
Done.
We're finished. That's
Done.
good.
You could fly an M-wing fighter.
Nice. Well, that's cool. Well, this is interesting to talk about because my tip of the invisible cap, as Martin likes to say, I can't do all that makeup. So my thought is if you look just a pale person as opposed to what are those? I'm thinking of several anime that have just characters with white faces. That's clearly makeup, but you're not going to talk about a clearly, flat white look. You're going to have, there'll be skin tone in there is where I guess I'm going. Yeah, so
I think she can't be all white.
I know she can't, but I'm saying that way you don't have to do two different looks, a Batu look and a ship look. You can just have the same. And you'll be just fine, my guess is.
That's the goal. I would love to be able to do that and also avoid the gloves if possible.
Oh, you don't want to do the gloves?
It's hot.
Sure.
It's real hot in Florida. Yeah. So if I could eliminate the gloves or even cut the tips off the gloves because now my skin color is more appropriate.
Right.
That would be a big benefit too.
Yeah, and you don't even have to put makeup on your fingers if you're not crazy different on your face.
We could dust them. I mean, that's not a big deal.
But you probably don't even need to if I had to think about it. But
yeah, we'll see. Once I start playing with 75 days.
75 days.
Well, you could also do nails then.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yes.
That would be
That's
cool.
the answer right there.
That's really awesome.
But I have to make sure that I can use my data pad.
Right, good point.
I can't go crazy with those nails.
You would have to figure that out. Well, that's cool. Well, this is exciting because maybe as we continue to evolve towards perfection, I know we're going to have several breakfast meetings. I think we need to get those breakfast meetings on the calendar again.
Agreed.
And we need to reach out to Patty. Hi, Patty, again. But we need to have that because it would be great to talk our further character evolution with her as well.
Absolutely.
Well, Martin, I think we've got the discussions that Christine and I have. What are you thinking about for our grab bag of topics today?
Well, I keep going back in my head to something that one of our earlier guests kind of referenced is that, the only thing that's really different about the Galactic Starcruiser experience than any trip to Galaxy's Edge is the time you spend on Starcruiser. Mm-hmm. I mean, the time that you spend on Excursion Day back on Batu, it's cool. I do really like that, some of the things you do down there follow you back up to the ship. However, his point was kind of valid in that it is a lot like the games you can play with the data pad.
Sure.
Any trip you take to Galaxy's Edge. If we went there today, we could pull out the Play Disney app, pull up the Galaxy's Edge data pad, and play a lot of these similar things there. In Florida, they got the Batu Bounty Hunters thing going on now with Magic Band Plus.
Right.
So his idea was less excursion time and more ship time to kind of get more dedicated missions that are different. And again, this isn't for today, this isn't for tomorrow, but this is in the future as they kind of look to evolve Starcruiser, to keep us coming back. Because I mean, they want us to keep coming back. And an interesting possibility that comes into my mind is the only thing that's keeping Starcruiser fixed in a specific point in time in the Star Wars timeline is that excursion. That's it.
Okay.
If they take out the excursion piece of it and have you spend all 2 days on the ship doing missions or what have you, sure, they'd have to expand the storylines a bit because you're 6 hours or whatever that you're usually on the planet are now back up at the ship. But they could set it in any timeline they want. If someone wanted to do it in prequel era, great. That ship, this ship's existed for 275 years.
Right. We know
they
that.
could put that in any point in time that we know about. Prequel era, original trilogy. They could put this in the Mandalorian era. And just, I'm kind of thinking to myself, boy, what would be characters that would be really fun to see on this ship that maybe aren't era appropriate for, between episodes 8 and 9. And I'm thinking of like a lot of characters that, we don't know how long some of these species live and whatnot. So like, a Bosk character, for instance.
Sure.
That character could theoretically be around between 8 and 9, but wouldn't it be fun to have like bounty hunter takeover of the Chandrila Star Line, or specifically the Halcyon, and have a bunch of missions with bounty hunters on that ship?
Okay.
I'm thinking to myself, sure, that's probably not era appropriate for where it's at now, but remove the excursion and you could just say, hey, when you're getting on the ship, we're setting this in this point in time, and just tell everyone, it's kind of like these overlays they have for Small World or, Mission Breakout in California Adventure. They have these seasonal overlays, and I'm just thinking to myself, could they ever do special kind of, not necessarily one-shot overlays. Could they do a life day overlay?
Well, they can always do overlays. That's relatively easy. But you're talking about completely changing
the era,
whole experience.
Yeah.
From hour 1 to hour 45. You're talking about the
different timelines,
completely different sets of mission, just to do a different timeline. So when I walk in, it's not between episode 8 and 9. It's now between New Hope and Empire.
Right. And I'm thinking to myself, they could really still leverage a huge piece of the back end that runs the system. I mean, it doesn't care what era you're in. It just knows that this mission connects to that mission. So you could kind of just reskin the missions somehow with different characters. And I still think the feel of it would come out very differently. And again, this isn't something that, I even want to happen right away. But I'm just thinking to myself, theoretically, I know a lot of people would love to see original trilogy characters on this ship.
But they're not going to see original trilogy characters. They're going to see actors portraying original trilogy characters, but it's not the same because they're going to talk. So
here's my counterpoint to that. You're right, but we already see Rey on this ship.
But Rey looks fairly generic and has a fairly generic English accent. So it's somebody kind of doing a Daisy Ridley impression, and that's I could do that with some practice. I wouldn't look the same,
but see, they could do the same kind of. And again, you're never really that close to. Rey's not in your face for the whole trip, for the whole voyage. I think they could get buy-in, for original trilogy characters. I think if they put a Luke Skywalker or a Han Solo, I do think sure there'd be a moment of But you give it an interesting story, I think people would absolutely run with that.
Well, I think that there was certainly a segment of people who would enjoy that. I think there's also a segment of, I think there's more people who would go, yeah, that was a good try, but that wasn't really Luke. And so I can't suspend my disbelief enough to be immersed. I'm still kind of I'm having a cognitive dissonance of not Luke, not Luke, while I'm trying to run through it.
Here's where I would disagree with that.
Mm-hmm.
California Adventure has shown to me people accept different actors as all these Marvel characters. Thor is a face character.
They see
Black Widow's a face character.
Sure.
All these people
Loki,
are face characters.
Right.
And they buy them. And to me, I think that they would.
But they see him for whenever I see Doctor Strange from Disney California Adventure, I just cringe a little because that's clearly not Benedict Cumberbatch. That's not the Stephen Strange from the movies. That's a cheap Times Square knockoff.
See, here's where I go with that is that argument is the exact same argument I was telling myself about the ship didn't look Star Warsy enough before I got on it.
Okay.
But the moment I was there,
sure,
and the moment the story began, I bought it all.
Right.
And I really do believe, yeah, you're right. And again, I'm arguing for someone besides the original trilogy actors to be playing these characters. But I believe if the setting was right and the story was right, I'd roll with it.
I don't want to. I'm not here saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that I can see where that would make the immersion a little bit more difficult. I think that might be enough to trip you. What's the? Isn't there a Marvel show where they get out of the bridge of the topic I'm thinking about is there's Thor and Loki are shooting across the universe in Ragnarok, and they get thrown out of the times or the whatever the bridge is, the Rainbow Bridge. They get jerked out and they're suddenly off. I think that if I had a knockoff Luke or a knockoff Han walking around, I think that would throw me out of the stream.
Well, it doesn't even have to be Luke and Han.
Sure.
You could just have characters in that setting.
Okay,
you could have
that I can see.
You could have, like right now, you can see in Starcruiser, this isn't a spoiler, they have a Poe-esque character show up on a view screen. Now, it's not Oscar Isaac. It really does look like Oscar. I had to think to myself, is that Oscar Isaac?
You actually said it was. Yeah. And
I thought it was for a second.
And I was like, I don't think so. Well, he does, but he doesn't say, I'm Poe.
But he does say the red leader or gold, whatever his call sign is. He specifically says that.
So he says Poe's call sign?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
interesting.
It is definitely intended to be Poe without saying the word Poe
Really?
Dameron. Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
So anyway, it's a fantastic lookalike. And to me, I bought the moment. It was great. So again, if they just had a Han and Leia, and again, we've seen really, really clearly, they can CG a young Han and Leia and Luke to say anything they want for 10 seconds on a view screen.
Oh, you're talking about a video. So if you had a moment where
a mission
DH, we just have to go get the rights to Harrison Ford's likeness so we can put it on this video.
I'm sure that he's already scanned it in a Lucasfilm computer somewhere. But I'm just saying that again, I can see your point with having them be walking around characters, but they introduced all these new characters that we had never seen or heard of.
Which I think helped the immersion, but I get it.
Which again, do the same thing, but in a different timeline. Then they can reference places that we do know and different things. And we could go, on a mission, we're orbiting Hoth or whatever, someplace that we've seen, someplace that we know. And they can get, real stormtrooper, and I'm not going to say real stormtroopers. That's not the original trilogy stormtroopers.
Okay.
You could absolutely get Darth Vader on that ship and be just fine.
Darth Vader wouldn't be hard because
Darth Vader would be because
the voice is easy to fake James Earl Jones, just like the fake Adam Driver that they used for Kylo Ren on The Current is close enough that it doesn't rip me out of the immersion.
No. So again, I'm not necessarily married to the idea.
Sure, we're just spitballing talking
of using face characters stuff, but could you put them on a screen? They have Hondo Ohnaka show up on a screen for a couple minutes, not even a couple minutes, brief little pieces, and it's absolutely joyful for me to see that character that I love, and I get a couple more seconds with that character that nobody else does that doesn't do this experience.
Did they get the same voice actor? They certainly got the same voice actor that did all the shots down on Batu.
I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean,
they did do it, is what I'm saying. But for you're talking about for this imaginary reskin that you're talking about, you're saying get get
whomever.
Harrison Ford to do the voice?
No, I don't think you need Harrison. I mean, again, they've already got people that have done Princess Leia in animation.
Right.
Princess Leia was a character on Rebels.
Okay.
The voiceover they had was fantastic.
Okay.
Absolutely fantastic. I don't necessarily, they have Mark Hamill doing, voicing the de-aged Luke Skywalker, and it sounds fantastic. I don't see a problem with that. Matter of fact, they said, if I'm paraphrasing the article correctly, he didn't record the lines. They actually have a program that just speaks young Mark Hamill at this point. That technology exists. So if they wanted to do it, could they do it convincingly in small video segments? Sure, they could. And again, just I'm looking at the joy I had of seeing this character I loved in these missions. This Hondo Ohnaka character, I love that character.
Yeah.
And knowing that if I didn't do this Starcruiser experience, I'd never get that piece of Hondo. And I'm just thinking to myself, what would I give to get a couple more seconds with Han, Luke, whatever, Darth Vader, Stormtrooper? Give me a generic Stormtrooper talking to me. I'll love it.
All I know right now is I want a T-shirt that has Hondo's face on it and then the saying, "Get a piece of Hondo." I absolutely need to make that happen because that is pretty good. Well, if you didn't, so I'm with you. I hear what you're saying. I couldn't get over it. That would be too rough for me. So personally, I couldn't get myself out. I think it would, in my opinion, it would cheapen the experience for me to see these knockoff characters. But I'd love the idea of doing a reskin and not going down to the planet and trying to come up with activities that bridge it over a little bit more. But I could absolutely see something saying, we're going to participate in, I'm slipping because I'm making this up as I go, but we can't go to Hoth right now because for some reason they're blockading the planet, because referring to obviously what's happening in Empire. And we're going to take a quick trip to Bespin, and we're going to go, we can't go here. We keep running into these Star Destroyers. I don't know what's going on here. But, I could see something era specific to maybe the original trilogy, but without the actors, I guess it'd be something I'd be for. Really,
the main concept I just always have in my head for any theoretical reskin is I do expect Disney to do something with Life Day at some point. That's that's low-hanging fruit for a reskin.
Sure.
And again, it's going to be a special, for this week only, this month only, this is what you get. Because again, I don't think they're going to ever change the core experience. I think these are going to be special event things. But the one that I just keep going back to is Bounty Hunter Takeover, where all the missions are bounty hunter centric. You can get bounty hunters that we know, and we get the oohs and ahs from having an IG droid up there. We get the oohs and ahs of having, a Bosk or a Transocean, character up there. Dengar could still be around, but then they could introduce a whole bunch of new bounty hunter characters. And if we see them, interacting with the ones that we already know, it automatically gives them cred. And I'd love to see a whole bunch of new bounty hunter characters added into that mix. And I think those missions kind of write themselves. I don't want to cheapen the incredible job the writers do of these missions, but I'd love to see that.
So there's always going to be people who want to be Jedi. So you're going to have a Jedi path on your bounty hunter takeover. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be people who are going to want to be First Order or Empire, depending on what era of the mythology you choose. So you're going to have to give them something for that as well. So basically, you're taking the scoundrel missions maybe, and you're making them more specific bounty hunter related.
I don't see any reason why they couldn't have a Jedi path, a scoundrel path, a First Order path with a bounty hunter takeover reskin.
So a bounty hunter and a scoundrel path?
No, I don't think there is a bounty hunter. The bounty hunters are on the ship causing havoc.
Oh, I see. You're not redoing the missions to be bounty hunter specific.
Yeah,
you're just redoing some of the skinning of the.
Basically, yeah. Okay. And again, with the missions, you're basically reskinning is what it is.
Okay.
I don't think you have to change the back end software that's running this thing for any of this. You just have to kind of create a new scenario to wrap the experience around to make it feel different. And again, is this something that they would do every single time? No, I think this is. Could they do limited time special versions of this experience?
I see. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking you're redoing a lot, but you're just literally talking about a light cosmetic thing, basically where you're sprinkling in, but They're still the same sort of mission, so they don't have to go rewrite the software.
No,
and
not
redo
at all.
everything.
Not in any way, shape, or form. We're talking about vision. You know, again, I mean, you'd put different names in the missions.
Sure.
But the missions themselves would be fairly similar.
Right.
I wouldn't want them to rewrite the software because, again, I mean, then they're having to retest everything, debug everything, and that becomes cost prohibitive.
Right.
We got to keep this something that is and something they can change in and out. You know, Monsters After Dark, the reskin they do for Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout.
Okay.
I mean, they change that from nighttime to daytime.
Okay.
That's how fast they can go from A to B. And that's really kind of how fast that they would need to put any kind of reskin on. This is, you know, this trip is this trip is that. And again, they'd have to advertise ahead of time which is which. And again, I'm not saying that this is even worth their time.
Oh, yeah, we're just throwing things around. Sure.
But how do they make it interesting enough to get people on for the 4th time, the 5th time? Or are we not the target market at that point? Do they say, you know, we want people to be on 3 times and that's really the sweet spot, and then we want more people to come on?
What I love is, I guarantee you, they know this in the back of their head. They've already looked at their Disney Cruise Line and they've shared that information. Most people take an average of 2 cruises, so we're gonna aim for that. We're gonna expect that we can get people back at least twice. I love thinking about those backroom meetings where they're talking about all this.
Because I'm thinking to myself, you know, from a repeat, you know, Star Cruise, you know, we bought a lot of merch that first trip.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of merch left for us to buy.
Right.
There is. I mean, there's the fine jewelry stuff that we couldn't justify for. Christine's like, yes, I would like some of that.
Oh, thank you.
But the point is that there's not going to be as much merch purchasing this time because there's not enough different merch to purchase. So really,
there's not enough merch to purchase.
So the benefit of having repeat, people coming on it's a law of diminishing returns for Disney. Is that sure we're a paying person on the voyage, but we're not doing all these ancillary purchases every single time. So I mean, at some point in time, they're like, yeah, we don't want someone on this thing the 10th time. They're not buying any shirts.
I'm sure they want you on the 10th time. They don't care. That's why they charge, $1,500 a person. So that's where they're making their money. Well, but I hear what you're saying.
I almost wonder too, as you're talking about going backwards, do we really need to talk more about going, well, I guess it would be backwards, looking at like High Republic.
Okay.
See, that's a perfect use of this.
You know, it's all new stories, all new characters, all new. So if you were a fan of that new era of books, and they're coming out with, I think, a Disney Plus show and stuff like that. But if you're that way, they could incorporate what would be like new to you, and it would feel like Star Wars, and it would still be a story that would involve the Halcyon. But it's not a character that you already have a visual, like this guy is Mark Hamill, like that's my Luke, so I can't see past that Luke. I mean, I do understand what you're saying, Martin, whenever you're talking about going to California Adventure and to Avengers Campus and seeing so many of the Marvel characters, and you can look at a character and be like, that's super cute. They do look a lot like fill in the blank.
Sure.
But I don't think you're paying for a park ticket and you see somebody pass by, or you take a quick picture, and that's kind of all your experience with them.
Flavor for the sauce.
Where when you're going on Starcruiser, this is somebody that you're going to invest your time in for a length of time. And so to take someone that we already know and love so deeply and from most of our childhoods and things like that, I think that part of it makes it difficult to just have somebody put on the costume and the wig and be like, hey kids, I'm Luke Skywalker. Like, I like the idea of doing what they did with Hondo and some of the other characters where they're on screen. It's like, hey, I'm in a ship outside of your ship, and here's the thing we need you to do, or I'm on a planet nearby, and here's where we need your help. To do that with some of the characters that we all know and love, that I could get behind. That I could buy into the illusion long enough for just that piece of it.
Right.
But I do think it would be difficult to have those characters on the ship.
Well, there's a reason why we don't really interact with Rey. They keep Rey not away from us, but definitely more away from us than the other characters. And there's a reason for that because, again, it's not Daisy Ridley. It's a very good, talented performer giving it her all, every performance. But there's a reason why they do keep Rey at kind of arm's length for the majority of this experience.
Unless you run into her in the hall and you insist that she takes a quick picture with you.
I will say that's the one regret I have.
That you did that?
That I did.
Really? You regret it?
I do.
Wasn't it a great picture?
It wasn't.
It's an okay picture, but she was in the middle of doing a thing.
Okay.
And we were kind of like, oh, just a quick picture. And she was like, I want to be nice. But no.
But it hurt her. It hurt her doing her job.
I got you. So it kind of hurt your soul a little bit then too.
It did. And again, the picture, she's very clearly, I'm trying to save the galaxy here, not trying to take this photograph. And again, Christine put so much time and so much effort into this character that I just wanted a picture of her and Rey. And I've got a beautiful picture of her with a really panicked Rey.
Oh, that's great. It's like Rey's holding her hand up and making all the rocks float away, and then some tourists walk and go, hey, can we get a quick selfie? And she's like, hold on.
And that's really what it is. And it just, again, we're so pro cast member.
Of course.
And I stopped that cast member from her performance for a moment, and that wasn't cool.
I see. I got you. I didn't mean to bring up a painful memory.
But you're already in it, and you're like, oh, this is so cool. And then afterwards, you're like,
oh, yeah. Boop, boop, boop. Sure, gotcha.
To that wonderful Rey performer.
Well, I think it is inevitable, Martin, that they will do some changes, and I'm very excited to hear about those changes, in 2 or 3 years' time. But it is interesting to imagine the what ifs if they did this in a different kind of era or a different galaxy or whatever you want to say. That's pretty cool.
I'm going to go on record as saying the first thing they're going to do is Life Day.
That'd be fantastic.
I'm going to put money on the table. That's their first little test iteration of a reskin.
Well, we'll come back in a couple years, and we'll see if you were right.
Gotcha.
Anything that means additional Wookiees, I'm behind.
Excellent. Always get a piece of Hondo and extra Wookiees.
Exactly.
Well, you got to give credit where credit is due.
And credits are always due.
All right, listeners, thanks very much for listening to us shoot the poodoo about a variety of topics. It's actually, we talked for about twice as long as I expected we'd talk. So when we get going, we get going.
Breakfast often becomes lunch.
It does. That's a true
meet.
statement. Now I think I understand why my wife
Lunch becomes lupper.
Yeah, one of the two. They all blend together. So Martin, we've been hitting during the jibber jabber about some announcements we have. What is the main announcement we have for this week?
Well, this week we have got a completely new and redesigned Heroes of the Halcyon website launched. It contains a great repository of not just information about all of our different episodes, but about us, about our characters, links to our Instagram pages, and just a lot of different blog articles that we write from time to time about Galactic Starcruiser, Galaxy's Edge, and all things pertaining to that. But Duffy, give us a look at the brand new heroesofthehalcyon.com.
So can people find the website or the podcast there? Can they? What else is up there?
Every single episode of the podcast, every one of our blog entries, all in one convenient spot.
Nice, very good. Well, Christine, besides going to heroesofthehalcyon.com to find us on the interwebs, where else can people reach us if they wanted to?
You can always find us at Halcyon_Heroes on Twitter or Heroes of the Halcyon on Instagram. We would love to get your feedback at heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to help the podcast, please go on Apple and leave us a 5-star review. It is actually very helpful. It's 100% free. We'll take you sir, you ma'am, the one listening to us right now, all of maybe 10, 15 seconds ago and just leave a 5-star review. It helps the algorithm find other people who enjoy podcasts like ours to find us and maybe learn a little bit more about the Galactic Starcruiser.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's always fun to shoot the poodoo with all of our Galactic Starcruiser superfan friends out there. So until next week, it's been our honor. Let's raise our glasses to Buoy Tay!